stuff that was on AM radio, WLS AM out of Chicago. So I was on the school bus route in the morning, right? My brother and I would get picked up. We'd have to ride the bus literally like an hour. And at one point we had a bus driver. I think he was the pastor's son, actually, and he had long hair, and he was like this cool rocker dude, and he would listen to WLS. So I heard things like Early Sticks, Shouted Out Loud by Kiss was on the radio, early Foreigner, Bachman Turner Overdrive, all that kind of stuff. You know, that was kind of when I was first introduced to American hard rock, you know, and I didn't even really know what a bass sounded like. I just remember I got the Bachman Turner Overdrive Not Fragile album, and it was a gatefold, and on the inside, C.F. Turner, the bass player, had a black and white Rickenbacker, and I just went, that looks awesome. And of course, I saw Gene Simmons, you know, I became a Kiss fan. I saw Gene playing it, spitting blood, breathing fire, you know, and just looking all badass. And I was like, now I really want to do that. You know, Kiss Alive came out, and I just remember the bass lines. You know, Gene's lines are so incredible. They're just so inventive. And especially the way they really often don't mimic the guitar parts, you know, they're very different. And then like Firehouse. Whatever. Ooh, yeah. You know, Gene always had these pulsating lines, you know, and then you watch videos of him and he's kind of doing his head and he's kind of doing the monster thing. And it's just very, it's like the pulse of the Kiss sound, you know. I love guitar-driven bands, and I learned to play guitar. I learned it was easier to write with guitar. But, you know, the bass for me was kind of the thing that was really, my ear always went to the bass. Geezer Butler was another one. Yeah. Which... He's got this kind of real greasy thing about how Geezer plays, you know. You know, we've done some shows with Sabbath over the years, both the Ronnie Dio version in the early 90s, and then with Ozzy. You know, in 2014, we did a run to South America together. And it was fun to watch Geezer. You know, years ago, I used to play Paranoid in one of my little cover bands I had back in Minnesota. And then, of course, Megadeth, we covered Paranoid. And as we were trying to figure out which song to play for that Nativity of Black record, I initially suggested, hey, let's do Paranoid, just because I knew it, and it was, you know, a pretty simple song as far as the arrangement. It's a little avant-garde, the arrangement, actually, for such a simple song. But we went around basically the entire catalog, and we tried all these different Sabbath songs, and eventually ended up back on Paranoid. And, of course, I played with a pick, so... I'm sort of emulating Geezer's sound. It's the Megadeth version, the David Ellefson version of a Geezer line. Probably literally the first song I probably learned to play was Creedence Clearwater Revival, Proud Mary. Which, funny enough, kind of almost sounds like a Foghat song. You know, I can't remember how it goes, but it's like the walking bass line, you know, is kind of the, you know, it's out of the simplest. You know, these simple blues line. I started to put together that the walking bass line, as goofy as it sounded, and I didn't really understand the parallel with it, I started to realize, wait a minute, this is what like a lot of my heroes are doing in and around songs that were basically guitar-driven songs. They either had riffs or guitar patterns. What the bass players were doing is they were basically playing these walking bass lines in and around that. So I started to, you know, as best a little teenage kid could, I started to kind of understand the composition of what those guys were doing. Now, of course, that would all completely change when Iron Maiden came out and Steve Harris just blew the roof off all that, because now he's the leader, he's the writer. Every song is driven by the bass, you know. You know, like Killers and... Child and all this stuff. You're just like, it's like, okay, now that's a freaking bass player, you know? And I don't know where that came from. It was like some, just anything aggressive. So I think probably my first bass lines were coming up with something like that. We started opening the show with HangarEighteen, and that was actually Vinnie Paul's idea. We were on a Gigantour, and we'd been opening the set with Trust, which had a very great dynamic buildup. And it works perfectly fine in some settings, depending on, I guess, the kind of the billing, you know. But so this one particular Gigantour was 2013, I think, and we had Black Label Society, Hell Yeah, a pretty heavy bill. And, you know, Vinny, he came in the dressing room one day, he goes, man, y'all's light show's amazing. Y'all's stage looks great. But man, y'all need to be opening with HangarEighteen. You know, and me and Dave were like, yeah, you think? He goes, man, I'm telling you, HangarEighteen, man, that's the one, you know. So that night we actually went out and we opened with HangarEighteen, and he was right. It just blew the lid off the place. You know, there's an excitement about it. And in fact, this very bass is a new, it's a Jackson, it's basically a brand new bass that we just rolled out. And it is the recreation of the original Jackson 5-string bass that we invented. So I could play HangarEighteen on tour. Right, so I could play that part of the song because the bit had this little thing down here that I needed that whole lick at the back half of the song. I needed to have the thing up in the standard tuning. So the album's coming out, and I realized, oh my gosh, I got to go on tour playing HangarEighteen. So I called Jackson, and I said, man, we got to come up with a bass. And we basically kind of took like this 4-string, widened the neck a little bit, and added the 5th string on it. And you know, pickups weren't really, bridges, nothing was really, you know, of state of the art yet for 5-string basses. We used to open the show, I guess when Rust in Peace came out, we opened the show with Holy Wars, and that. I mean, that's like coming out of the gate, running as hard and fast as you possibly can, you know. So, I mean, it's like going for it, you know. And it's funny with this arm, if you're not kind of relaxed and sort of breathing, it's like you tense up and you get Popeye arm. You know, so it's like, that's why by the time you get to the, I'm not even warmed up enough to play it out. And you get to that break where the, you know, Marty does the little flamenco part. It's like, you're just waiting for that part to, oh, good, I get a break, you know, so I could let my arm relax for 8 bars before we go back into the rest of the song. Right, so there's the line, and it's a you know, the trick in it is you know, I get people that come to me all the time, go, hey, I just started learning to play bass, and I'm learning P-cells. I'm like, geez, dude, it's not an easy line to play, because of just obviously there's a lot of notes, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of this, that little thing right there, and it really requires, you got to use all 4, you know, fingers to play it. And it really, in my opinion, the way the line was played and played properly, you got to play it with pick. And of course, in the bass world, we get this pick versus fingers snobbery. And, you know, I say play the bass however you can make it sound good. Slap it, spank it, pick it, pluck it, whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? Whatever you got to do to make it sound the best. And you know, these lines, especially that one, there's a lot of palm muting that goes into it, you know, so I do this palm muting thing where I just lay my hands back here on the palm. And a lot of that is, you know, me and Dave, when we were starting the band, just really getting, you know, I realized as long as the bass, there's going to be times where the bass needs to play along with the guitar, and then there's other times when it can kind of pull back and it can, you know, do its own thing. We knew when we started that song, because we'd have Gar start with his kick drum, you know, kind of the 4 on the floor, you know, kind of, you know, get the crowd going. And then I'd kick in, play the bass part. You could just tell that that was going to be a hit, you know? I just started ripping that lick out, which became the song Vultures. And it's still a really fun song to play. It's just, you know, King of the Teenage Eighth Note. And I'm just playing it on one string, which is just very punk rock. And as much as, you know, you could play it on this E here on the second, you know, on the third string, actually, the A string. And I'm playing it up here just because there's a vibe, there's an attitude, which is this kind of like Sid Vicious punk rock thing. You know, that I like about it. And that's really where, to me, the attitude comes across. And to me, you know, playing any instrument, especially bass, in a, you know, in rock and roll and metal and stuff, it's about getting the attitude, you know, and capturing that. There's, for Simple Truth, you know, which we put out earlier this year. Right, and again, to me, that was kind of this Dead Kennedys, you know, just it was the same thing. It was like we're rehearsing for a tour in Italy, and my singer Tom, he goes, let's write a song today. So I just picked up my bass with the band guys all set up, and I just kind of like, let me just. It reminded me of like Police Truck or something by the Dead Kennedys.